the insurance adjuster wants you to agree to their estimate before sending the check. Have you had that happen before? That's a very, very common tactic that's used by adjusters with all insurance companies out there that tends to help them hold something over your head to get what they want in a quick process. So to keep you from having to wait for a check to be sent, or for approval and coverage to be applied to one of your jobs, it's one of the tactics that insurance adjusters will deploy to get you to kind of take what they have if you'll take it now. Okay? But if you look into this a little deeper and you just have a little bit of general understanding about what they're doing, there are some strategies that you can use to turn the tables back around on the adjuster. And I got to tell you, after 20 years in this industry, I've been seeing them try this tactic for years, and it's something that still remains the same today, as recently as 2 or 3 times over the last couple weeks, with me and my jobs. And so sometimes it's a small amount of money that they're doing that with, and sometimes it's, we're going from 182,000 to 406. You could also check out one of my other videos in a series that I have called, if you haven't seen it already, called What's Wrong with This Insurance Estimate, and it's episode number 10, which really goes into that project in detail. But one of the things with that job was the adjuster wanted me to agree to the $406,000 that they had ready to pay, and agree to the scope that was in the estimate for that 406 before they sent it. But the thing you have to understand is if they've already applied coverage to items on your job, then that's what's referred to as undisputed cash. Okay, so I'm not a policy and coverage expert, but undisputed cash is where they've already acknowledged that there is damage and they owe for it, and they've even assessed a price for it, but then they're holding it back and they're not releasing you the cash. They're withholding cash that's undisputed. So anytime that there are damages like that, where coverage has already been applied, a price has already been determined, they're supposed to make those payments out to you. And so they're not supposed to, in my case, they were trying to use, there were items for windows and doors. They were open items, meaning they were acknowledged that there was coverage for those items, but prices were going to follow at a later point in time, and the adjuster agreed to that. And that was a tactic to get them to go ahead and release the 406 where they were at, and not hit them with another $200,000 for windows, $200,000 plus dollars for windows and doors that might cause delay to the overall project. And so, but they wanted to get the agreement on those windows and doors first before releasing the 406 that they'd already agreed to. And so the thing, it's very easy to get around this. That's the good news. And the response that I will almost always give under these circumstances is, and the question that they usually give is, look, if you agree to this amount where we're at right now, then I'll go ahead and send the check. But if you don't agree to it, then we're going to need to work out those differences before I'm going to send payment at all. But my approach is always no, right? Because that could take us a long time to work out and to figure out if your estimate for this amount is even accurate. So let me run it through my whole team and vet it to determine if it's accurate. And that's not something that I can do immediately right now. And if it's something that you can do immediately right now, it would be a good idea to be a little bit more diligent and thorough to run it through other people on your team anyway. So at this time, I would recommend that that's something that you do. And so that you're not lying to them when you tell them, look, I can't agree to it right now because I have to vet it. We have to run this through our team and through our estimating staff, right? So, but what I can tell you is these items that you've already agreed to thus far, like these are items that you've applied coverage to and you've agreed to at least the cash that you're willing to pay. That's undisputed cash. And so go ahead and send the check, right? And at a later point in time, when we do figure out if there are any problems with this estimate, if that is the case, then we can go through the supplementing process and send it through the proper channels at that time. Like, that's not something that we need to go through now. Like, these items right now, we agree that you owe at least this much, basically. That's kind of what you're saying with different words, using different words, is you're basically telling them, look, we do agree that you at least owe this amount of money. And that's the idea behind undisputed cash being released. Okay, but another way to help with this is building some rapport with that adjuster. If this is a field adjuster who is withholding their payment, they should be easier to deal with because they should be off of that file and gone. You know, so like after a payment is issued, which there's an incentive for them to make that happen, because typically, especially independent field adjusters, they're usually not paid their payment until after there's a payment issued. So like, and they consider that to be closed. And it's closed until someone reopens it again, right? But at that time, that usually will trigger a payment to them, or it'll trigger a payment to their independent adjusting firm that they work for, which just means that their payment is closer, okay? So if there were a supplement submitted or filed on that particular claim at a later point in time, after the payment's already been issued to that adjuster, the chance of it going back to that same field adjuster, even if this was a person that handled the re-inspect, the chance of it going back to the same field adjuster is slim to none. And it depends on who the insurance company is and that kind of thing, but the chance of it going back to that same adjuster really is slim. So any agreement that they made to you, even if it's sort of like a gentleman's agreement or gentlelady's agreement, it's going to be long forgotten about unless it was logged into the claim specifically. And one way to really hurt yourself is when they ask you, do you agree to this? And if you do, I'll send the payment. If you send them, especially if that's in an email format, and you send them back an email that says, yeah, I agree to it, send the check, then that's on the record with you agreeing to that. And it's not that you can't get additional monies added later, because you may still be able to get some things added. But the point is, it's going to be an uphill battle. Like if you already agreed to it, they're going to say, listen, we see here that you agreed that overhead and profit was off the table. No, I didn't either, right? And so that's why, if anything, I want them, and if it's not an email, it may be, especially with a State Farm adjuster, for example, they're notorious for logging things into the claim file, which will have a way of showing up later. And so it's important that you not say things that can come back to hit you later. And you always want to be honest to the insurance company. That's rule number one, is always being honest with the insurance company. So don't agree to anything that you don't know that you can agree to just because you're coming from a place of almost desperation because you need the cash, or you need the payment, or you need the job to move along because the customer's getting antsy. You don't have to agree to it to get the payment issued. That's the point here, right? Like, you can, so getting back to them, go ahead and send the payment. If you've built up some rapport with that adjuster, if it's the field adjuster, and I'm sorry for moving around here and being a little scatterbrained, but that's how I am. That's how I think. So it just comes out. But if it's a field adjuster, see if you can establish with that adjuster, how do your supplements work? Like, who handles your supplements? I have another video that I did. I'm going to drop a link to it here a while ago. And this was a video that I recorded of an actual field adjuster appointment, where I asked it was a commercial inspection, I asked the field adjuster just that question. I said, hey, who handles your supplements? How's that part dealt with? And he said, it's dealt with on the inside. And I said to him, after having built up some rapport on items that I couldn't get him to agree to putting in the estimate at that time, I said to him, I said, don't worry about it, brother. I'll come back and supplement it later after you've already been paid. And this was just such a good example because he laughed and he was like, oh, my man, you know what you're doing, because it was like music to his ears, because field adjusters do not want to see their payments being held up because you don't agree to something. So you can make their life a lot easier by giving them a way of just issuing that payment without having to get that agreement from you. So a good example is, like I said, Mr. or Miss Adjuster, I'm sorry, but I can't agree to anything with you. That would be preposterous, right? Because it would take time to sort of vet this estimate, run it through proper channels, and run it through the rest of our team to even see that if we can't, we'd have to give it a proper review. We will try to work along, and follow your prescription, because our job is to, we've been hired as the contractor to perform all repairs that have been prescribed by this claim. So I can tell you that I'm going to do everything that I can, and we as a company, we're going to do everything we can to follow all of your prescriptions until we can. Okay, so we're going to try to give that a try. We're going to review everything, and if there are any problems that arise, so in other words, if there are any issues that show us that we're not able to follow your prescription, okay, like if we run into a roadblock when we're trying to follow your prescription for the repairs, then we'll identify those issues and those items, we'll document them, prove it, put it into photos and any other necessary documentation, and we'll put it into an Xactimate estimate. And the good news is you probably won't be on the claim anymore. We'll send it in through the proper channels, through the inside desk adjuster, or through the inside claims department at that time, through the proper supplementing channels. And if you've built up that rapport with them, you can get them to tell you who it is that handles the supplements, right? So when you're crossing this bridge, when they're trying to get you to agree to it at a later point, you can refer back to it and say, remember, you already told me you don't even deal with the supplements, so you don't have to worry about it. When we do, or if we do have any issues and we do need to file for a supplement, it's not going to be an issue that blows back on you. You will have already been issued payment. It's going to be somebody else's baby, somebody else's problem at that point. But don't worry about it. I mean, I get it. I understand how the rules work in this industry. I understand that if I am going to file it for anything supplemental, I'm going to have to document it and show why that is. And I would definitely make sure to do that. And you already can see at this point, hopefully they can see, that you already go over the top with your documentation. You don't just take 5 photos, you take hundreds of photos. You prove it better than any adjuster would ever prove it. You prove the damage, you prove incidental items. If it's a roof that you're replacing and the codes call for the flashing to be replaced where it comes along, where it meets the siding, for example, and that flashing that's currently there was installed with nails, the holes in that flashing is damaged. And the codes from the IRC, International Residential Code, for example, if it's a residential job, say that flashing, all flashing, must be replaced where rusted, damaged, or deteriorated. And so if that flashing needs to be replaced because of that reason, but now that flashing is also tucked behind siding, wood siding, for example, or say aluminum siding, and through the process of removing that flashing and removing the siding, which would be required, let's just say that the siding in that area could not be reinstalled without being damaged. And so if you were to now we have to replace that portion of the siding. And let's just say that particular siding has been discontinued. Okay, so you can see where one thing sort of leads to the next. Now, this kind of a scenario happens a lot. It can be an uphill battle, to get all of the siding approved and to be replaced. And you can see that that's where I'm going with that. But if it were to happen, it does happen a lot. If it were to happen, you can see that you would need to document each and every step where you've connected A to B to C to why in the heck do you have to now replace the siding, right? Like, if you come with some crazy requests like that may actually not be that crazy, because it is logical and it is reasonable if you're to think about it in terms of, I have to obey the law, and the building codes require this and that, and lead them down the logical path. And ultimately, that is going to be easier to do if you've already taken the cash off the table from before on the coverage that they've already applied and have approved previously, and you've gotten them to pay for it, right? So like, you've gotten them to already pay for the roof and everything previously. And I talk about these things a lot. If you're new to my channel and you're just seeing one of my videos for the first time here, I want you to go watch some more, because I elaborate on these things a lot more. And in my iescertified.com course, of course, we go on for over 30 hours about these issues. But one other thing to note, that if you're at this juncture to where they're trying to get you to agree to something that you don't want to agree to right now, and it's not smart to agree to, because you don't want to give away something and close the door on something, that you need to be opened at a later point in time, or you might need opened at a later point in time. I'm always a proponent of getting the cash off the table that's available at all times, because I understand, as a former general contractor of 10 plus years, that cash flow is king. More than anything else, cash flow tends to be the most important thing for a contractor, especially in the insurance restoration business, because the insurance companies are always trying to withhold money from you, and then there's mortgage company issues. So I will say that this thing that can appear to be a disadvantage, I'm showing you a way to where it can be an advantage. In addition to that, recoverable depreciation. I talk about this a lot. Typically, insurance companies will hold back recoverable depreciation and only issue the ACV value on a claim up front in this situation. And they will release the depreciation after the repairs have actually been made, after they've been performed or incurred. Paid when incurred, PWI, you may have heard that term. Now, with the exception of some building code upgrade items, which are referred to as OL items, ordinance and law items, technically, they're supposed to issue this recoverable depreciation not when the repairs have been made, but when the contractor has actually been hired to make those repairs. So when the general contractor has been hired to make these repairs, that's technically when they're supposed to actually release it. State Farm, USAA, Nationwide, Allstate, MetLife, many other insurance companies will do this upon request. You just have to ask for it. And of course, you'll probably have to send them a copy of your signed agreement. Don't send them an agreement with dollar amounts on it. Just send them an agreement that says you've been hired for the full RCV value to perform all repairs that have been prescribed by the insurance claim. Claim number, insurance company, client name, address, sign. That's it. So take that cash off the table and the supplemental money. Don't agree to anything, because you don't want that to come back and haunt you later. I hope this has been helpful. If it is, and you're not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe. Insurance Restoration Training. I love y'all. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your dedication and all your support, all your comments. Please comment below. If you'd like to see something that you'd like covered in a topic, please comment below. And I hope all of you guys are out there grinding this week. It's Thursday right now. Finish strong. Tomorrow's Friday, and you know what that means. The grind includes Fridays. Love you guys. God bless. Peace.